Okay, I think you're recording. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We've had some technical problems we've been working through, and this is all kind of new to all of us here at the Extension, Fort Bend County Extension, and also I think even at the Central Appraisal District, Mr. Cruz and Anna, they're working through some technical issues there too. But we thank you for being here this morning, and we hope that we can make this kind of a more than just a once a year event to kind of outreach to folks to let them know about appraisals of their land and in all this everything that needs to be done in order to make sure you're saving money and I guess paying our share as well. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ben Cruz with the Central Appraisal District and his partner as well, Anna Cariaga. And I hope I pronounced your last name right. If I didn't, I apologize. Forgive me if I tore that up. But anyway, Ben, it's all yours. Take off.
Outstanding. Yes, my colleague here is Anna Cariaga. She'll be sitting in and manning the chat room on the site. So to begin with, my name is Ben Cruz. I'm an RPA appraiser at the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District. I am the Director of Land Appraisals here in the county. So I'm really glad that Philip reached out and we could have this presentation to speak about ag and possibly get some things out there that can be shared with the community and understand agricultural appraisal a little bit better. So I'll tell you what, let's start out. I'm going to go to our website, fbcad.org, and I'm going to be referring to some forms during this presentation. And I want to show you guys where our website is and where to find those forms. So let me get this displayed up. Now, this is the Appraisal District website. And there's our series, part 1 of 2. The forms we'll be talking about today can be found in the form section. And you can click on the FBCAD forms, scroll down to the bottom, agricultural appraisal forms. Let me go back to our meeting. Okay, so I'd like to share with you a little bit about the agricultural appraisal.
There you go.
Okay.
We can see it, Ben. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So agricultural appraisal valuation for taxation, 1D1 appraisal and also 1D appraisal. So in 1966, Texas voters approved the first agricultural appraisal law. It was a constitutional amendment of the Texas Constitution, and this amendment and the appraisal statutes in the tax code that were implemented provide certain kind of farmland to be appraised at its value based on the land's capacity to produce agricultural products, not a market value. So in many cases, this appraisal technique substantially reduces taxation of land that qualifies for agricultural appraisal. This special appraisal technique has several popular names, including productivity value, productivity appraisal, special appraisal, ag appraisal, and the hatred ag exemption. This is the Property Tax Code, Chapter 23, Section C, and that refers to the 1D agricultural appraisal. 1D agricultural appraisal is restrictive and applies only to land owned by families and individuals, and agriculture must be the property owner's primary occupation and source of income. In '78, the Texas voters approved a second amendment adding Section 1D1, allowing open space land as well as timberland to be appraised based on its productivity value. This amendment allows eligibility for productivity appraisal for corporations as well as individuals. and there is no income or occupation tests. This amendment took effect in 1979, and Tax Code 23, Subchapter D, governs that appraisal. Section 1D1 is referred to as 1D1 Open Space Appraisal Law, and most properties in Fort Bend County are appraised as 1D1 Open Space Agricultural Appraisal. So in 1995, Texas voters approved the amendment to include land used in management of wildlife. So the key differences here. 1D was adopted in 66, 1D1 in 79. Actually in 67 was 1D1, or 1D, sorry. The reapplication for 1D, you must apply annually. For 1D1, once you apply, that application stands until something changes, ownership changes, or something on the property changes, or the chief appraiser sends you an application and asks for you to reapply. For 1D, a property owner must be an individual. So a corporation does not qualify for 1D, but under 1D1, individuals and corporations, so your living trusts, your LLCs, various things would be eligible for 1D1, not the 1D. So the occupation income for 1D must be your primary source of income. For 1D1, you don't have to show any sort of income for that. It's not a test. We have several questions that come in. You know, this person has this many acres or this and that and the other, and they're not charging, they're not selling cattle or anything like that. Unfortunately, 1D1 appraisal, you don't have to show an income test. So if you're not making a living off of that land, you can still be eligible for 1D1. But the qualifications are set up as if you were going to make a living off of that land. So as if you were going to be valued under 1D. So on 1D, the number of preceding years devoted principally to agricultural use is 3 years immediately preceding the application. For 1D1, it's 5 out of the last 7 years. So you could have, you could be running row crop for 2 years, let the land lay idle for a year, and then cultivate for another 3 years, and that would be eligible for the 1D1. Rollback taxes for the 1D, they apply if the property is sold or the agricultural use is stopped. With the 1D1, it's not necessarily automatically when the property is sold. A new property owner could purchase the property, and then they could possibly be eligible, fill out an application, and apply for the 1D1. So that's key differences between the two laws there. Currently in the county, we do not have any 1D qualified 1D land in Fort Bend County. Everyone fills out an application for 1D1 just because the restrictions are lighter, and you don't have that instantaneous rollback. So most people elect to apply under 1D1. So our guidelines, I will show you guys where to find the guidelines. As I did earlier in the presentation, our website, these guidelines are found on the website that I'm referring to here on the slideshow. But first of all, the application period is between January 1st and April 30th of the year you wish to have the special appraisal. So if you're applying for Ag Appraisal, we start taking applications in January, and applications become late after April 30th. So late applications are accepted from May 1st until 1 day prior to the appraisal rolls being approved. A 10% penalty is assessed on late applications should the land qualify for agricultural appraisal. So from May 1st to July 20th, most of the time July 20th, you can file, well, I'm sorry, May 1st to July 19th, because it has to be the day before they approve the records. You can apply, but the application will be deemed late if it qualifies and you are approved for the 1D1 and Ag. Applications filed after the late application period, so anytime after July 20th, will be processed as invalid. The land is ineligible for agricultural appraisal for that year. Doesn't matter why it's late. If it's postmarked prior to, then we can process that application. But by statute, the tax code says that that application is ineligible if it is not in this office by the approval of the appraisal rolls. So agricultural use must be the primary use of the land for the preceding qualifying years, the applied for year, and every year thereafter if the property owner wishes to be assessed for agricultural value. So for example, if acreage with a residence homestead exemption or other special appraisal will not be considered as agricultural history for the previous primary use was the assessed for use. So say legally in Texas, you can have a 20-acre residence homestead. So you run cattle on 12 acres of that, and then you have 100 acres behind you that you're running cattle on. After 5 years of that, you want to transfer that acreage over and have those 12 acres in ag. Well, technically, the primary use of that property was your residence homestead. So there's some technicality there on whether or not that was the primary use of the property. But you can apply for it and go through the motions and appeal in front of the ARB, and that decision may be overturned, but that's going to be the standpoint from the beginning about transferring land from a residence homestead or some other special appraisal to ag. Number 5, first-time applicants must show proof of primary agricultural use for 5 out of the last 7 years. And again, this is for 1D1, not 1D. 1D is you have to show primary use for consecutive 3 years prior. B, degree of intensity must be met. The applied for year before a property will qualify. Subsequently, every year thereafter. So the year that you're applying, you have to meet the minimum acreage, you have to meet the degree of intensity. Prior to the year that you're applying, you may have 40 acres and only have 3 cows on it. But from the time that you apply and all years after, you have to meet that degree of intensity. C, the subject tract, if the subject tract is leased, a copy of the lease must accompany the application. And that goes both ways. If someone is leasing your property in order to qualify, we would need a lease for that also. And B, in case of a verbal lease, a notarized affidavit by the leasee verifying the terms of the lease is required. So if you have a verbal lease, and many people in Fort Bend County have a verbal lease or a handshake, when the controller's office comes in and asks us for paperwork on applications and agricultural appraisal, we have to supply that paperwork or else we get a failing grade from the controller's office. So we need written documentation of any sort of lease in the county. Number 6, a new agricultural application must be filed when an ownership changes on the property. So that goes from owner to owner, an individual to a trust, a probate. Many times people, a spouse will pass away. Well, when that will gets probated, that's a legal change of ownership of the property. Our computer system automatically deletes the ag, automatically puts a termination date on the ag, and sets the property up to request a application if the new owner wants to apply for ag. So any sort of ownership change. If possibly we do have situations where people, their name is spelled wrong on their deed and they have to file a correction deed. Well, when they file that correction deed, that ag automatically comes off. So the best thing to do, if anyone has any sort of legal document recorded at the courthouse, that's going to change their status here in the office. So 6B, any change of use, all or part of the property to a different type of agricultural use. So say you want to change from irrigated cropland to dry cropland. So you want to stop farming rice and you want to go start farming corn. So you have to fill out a new application explaining that change. Same goes for pasture land. So if you're running cattle and you would like to go to row crop or vice versa, you have to do the same. You have to fill out an application informing us of the change of use. Or if we send you an application, you need to fill it out and send it back in. So that's a good practice to be. Now, if you do not do this, say you change the use of the property, let's just say from pasture land to row crop, and you do not inform the appraisal district, and the appraisal district finds out about it, a penalty can be assessed for not changing that use with our office. And a lot of times, if you're actually changing that use, it could be in your favor. You could have a reduction in the value of that particular use. So there are times where it's beneficial to inform the appraisal district of what's happening on your property, and we need to have our records correct. So 7, a minimum of 1 acre must be taken out for a home site where applicable. That's a minimum. So if, say, you bought a 40-acre tract and you plat out for the mortgage company, you plat out 3 acres for your house, your septic tank takes up a ½ acre, your well has to be 100 foot from your septic tank, and you're actually using 2 acres for your home site. We need to take out 2 acres for your home site. But if you really compact it, most of the time we try to split out a minimum, at least 1 acre taken out. So a separate application is requested for each account. So if you have a 400-acre tract and it's 3 account numbers, we request that you fill out an application for each account. That keeps our records in order so we know what is happening on each piece of property. And each application will be considered on its own merit. So we review each and every application that comes into the office and look at the details and apply the law as pertinent. So what we have here is a grid of degree of intensity ratings in Fort Bend County. What you see there is cropland. We have cotton, corn, milo, soybeans. The intensity rating, 15 bales for 20 acres. Pretty much you're going to meet the minimum acreage as long as you have a prudent operation under good management. Irrigated rice, minimum of 20 acres. Pasture land, improved pasture, we look for 2 tons per acre for a minimum of 25 acres. Native pasture, we're looking for a minimum of 5 animals on 40 acres. For improved pasture, we're looking at a minimum of 5 animals for 8 acres. So the difference there is if it's improved pasture, you've gone out there, you've dozed down all the trees, you've possibly tilled up the land, maybe put out some seed out there to have animals. If you're going to have animals on improved pasture, there must be a minimum of 5 animals on 25 acres. If you're going to do improved pasture just for hay and not animals, then you need to have 2 tons per acre. And that's definitely, from what I understand, that's about 1 cut per year. And most good hay pastures are going to get more than 1 cut per year. Native pastures, as I said, 40 acres is a minimum for that. Orchards, you have pecan orchards, fruit orchards, and then you also have beekeeping. So beekeeping is the only minimum and maximum acreage that is regulated by the state. So that's 5 acres for minimum and 20 acres for the maximum. There's no fluctuation there. You have over 20 acres for beekeeping, you can only qualify 20 acres for beekeeping. And that goes the same for 5 acres. If you only have 4 acres, you cannot qualify. That is regulated by the state. And again, this degree of intensity is set up so that a property owner could make a living on this property. So, people often ask, well, how come I can't get native pasture on 20 acres? Well, could you actually live above the poverty line raising animals on less than 40 acres. All I can say is that's highly unlikely. So that's where the minimum acreage and the degree of intensity comes from. So with that degree of intensity, we have to add onto that. Tracts less than the minimum acreage may qualify if used or leased in conjunction with an adjacent or nearby acreage of the same agricultural use to meet the minimum acreage requirements. In doing so, landowners are effectively creating a larger tract of land sharing the same agricultural use. So tracts less than 5 acres must be used with the adjoining acres of the same use in order to qualify. So what we're saying here is, let's just take, for instance, the road I live on. There's one hay producer that lives on that road, and he cuts several people's hay along the road. So several people on that road have 20 acres, they have 10 acres of hay, and they're all leased out to this one person. And he comes down and he meets the degree of intensity, comes down there and cuts the hay several times a year. And all of those acreage, all of that, it's almost like a co-op where all of those acreage come together, and they come together to create a larger tract of land. And subsequently, they all are eligible for the agricultural appraisal. So when it gets down below 5 acres, we have had situations where people have looked at one side of the county and said, well, my friend has a roping arena over here. Can I use that to qualify my front yard for hay? That's not going to qualify. Of course, that's an extreme example, but I just want to put that out there. So there is an important notice about agricultural appraisal per Property Tax Code 2355. If a property is qualified for agricultural appraisal and its use changes to a non-agricultural use, and lack of use is a change from non-agricultural use, the current owner will owe an additional tax, which is a rollback, which is called a rollback, for each of the previous 3 years in which the land received the special appraisal. The rollback tax is a mandated sanction for taking the land out of agricultural production. The rollback is the difference between the taxes one has paid on one's land, one land's agricultural value, and the taxes they would have paid on the, at times, higher market value, plus a 5% flat interest charge for each year from the date that the taxes would have been due. I know this is a lot to go through, a lot to digest, but like I said, these guidelines are on our website. So you can go there. It's under the agricultural appraisal guidelines, and you can review them yourself. What we will be looking for whenever we get an application in, say somebody fills out an application for cropland. So when we go out to inspect the property, we're going to look for tillage, some planting, some harvesting, something looking like they're getting ready to grow a crop. Fertilization, weed control, insect control, prudent maintenance, harvest yields, and shredding of the previous crop. So if someone applies for rice, we're going to go out there. We're going to look for the irrigation. We're going to look for the water management. Make sure that there's levees out in the pasture. Now rice is on a rotation, depending 2 or 3 years. So if someone's going to qualify for rice, property is going to have to be fenced, because if it's lying idle just for the regular rotation, that may not qualify for rice. So if we're going out looking for improved pasture, as I said before, we're looking for about 2,000 pounds per acre per year. Typically, when we're driving around, we're going to notice some properties and say, oh, well, that looks like a hay pasture, and just keep an eye on it and see if we see some bales coming up here or there. We're going to look, possibly people are seeding the property and fertilizing the property. We're going to look for weed control, the areas around the ditches, around fence lines. Are they possibly trying to get out the weeds and keep the weeds and the other growth in the area, the other things that sprout up here and there. If it's improved pasture that someone's using for grazing animals, We're going to look for fencing. We're going to look for water. We're going to look for enough forage for at least 5 animals to be grazing there. Native pasture. Native pasture, the only way to qualify native pasture is to have grazing animals, so you must be fenced. Grazing animals does not include the pleasure horses. Pleasure horses are not a qualification for native pasture. We can get into that specifics of that later on, but for native pasture, we're going to be looking for grazing animals. We're going to be looking for fences. We're going to be looking for water and enough forage for 5 animals to be growing. So if you're going out there and you're just killing all the grass and nothing can eat there, that may disqualify you for ag. More common practices, we're looking for orchards. So depending on the type of orchard, 16 to 260 trees per acre, 50-foot centers to 12-foot centers. Water available. Most orchards have irrigation systems that spray on the trees and around the trees what we're doing here is we are attempting to have an agricultural product. So random trees in someone's front yard is not qualifying agricultural property. So water must be available. You must control the insects. What we're looking for pruning. You top a pecan tree, it's going to grow a whole lot more pecans. So we just look for things like that people are making an effort to have an agricultural product on their property. Grass farms and tree farms, obviously we're going to look for the continued harvesting of the grass and or trees, the keeping up with any weed control that is around, and the establishment of water. Obviously, grass farms, they have an extensive sprinkler system, and trees farms should do the same. And I believe we have a few examples here. So what we have here is a nice native pasture. Got some cows grazing in the middle of the picture there. That is an eligible native pasture. This next picture is someone's yard. They have 3 acres. It's a home site. They have a fence. They have animals, but it's 3 acres. It's not eligible for agricultural appraisal. What we have here is an eligible improved pasture. You see there's no fencing there. I'm hoping you guys can see that in the picture there's a row of hay bales there, and you can see it. You can actually see the lines of when they baled that hay there. That hay was baled just before this picture. This is not eligible. This is a manicured front yard. This is not improved pasture or a tree farm or an orchard. You can see the trees are planted pretty nice, but that doesn't make it an orchard. This here is an example of an eligible row crop preparing for the next year. I don't know if you guys can see it, but in the center of the picture, there's actually a tractor there shredding down last year's crop. We have here an eligible row crop. This is cotton, ready to be picked. They've defoliated, and this should be, I believe it was about 2 days after this picture was taken, they came in and harvested the cotton. And I believe we're at no, we got one more. We have a home garden, a private home garden. This is not eligible for row crop. People are growing vegetables. They are growing an agricultural product, but a home garden is not eligible for agricultural appraisal. That ends that slide. If anyone has any questions, you can pull the questions up on the chat on the side, and we'll be taking notes there, and hopefully we'll be able to answer the questions if time remains. Let me pull up the next slide. Is that displayed? How to complete an agricultural appraisal application. So you can go to our website and obtain this application. Go to our website, fbcad.org, go under forms, go under FBCAD forms. 1D1 Agricultural Appraisal Application is right there. It's down at you scroll down to the bottom of the page, and Agricultural Appraisal Forms are there. There are actually 3 different places in our website, and I'll show you at the end of our presentation those 3 different places where you can find all the agricultural information you could use. So on the application, on the first page, very important, you populate that you're applying for agricultural appraisal at the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District. You populate the tax year that you are applying for, and populate the account number there at the top of the first page. Page 1, section 1 is the property owner's information. So this is important information. We need to contact you. We need to know who's applying, whether it be a company or whether it be an individual. This information is very important. So the checkbox there will say whether it's an individual or corporation. You put your name there under property owner. Most vacant land or most agricultural land, it doesn't have an address. So you can put the known access point. So say you're on Highway 36, you can just write on there Highway 36. It's good to have the property owner's phone number and then the property owner's mailing address. The property owner's mailing address is very, very important because by statute, we have to correspond with property owners via mail. Sometimes it's certified mail, sometimes it's first class mail. So it's very important that property owners have the correct mailing address on record at the appraisal district. So if anyone's watching this program after we get off of this presentation, go to our website, make sure we have the correct address, mailing address for each property owner. And if not, on our website, they're in the Fort Bend forms, FBCAD forms, there is a mailing address change form. You can fill that out and submit it to our office, and we can get those records correct. Because there's nothing worse than having a problem with a mailing address, losing your agricultural appraisal. We send you an application to apply, you don't apply, and then lo and behold, you get just a large tax bill at the end of the year. So it's very, very important that we have correct mailing addresses on agricultural properties. And if a property is under an undivided interest, so if family owners leave property to family members, if they're elected to have separate taxation, if each family member or each owner elects to have separate taxation, each property owner needs to fill out an agricultural appraisal form application. If you do not fill out the application, then you're not eligible for the agricultural appraisal. So it is possible if a property has 4 owners and they all elect to have separate taxation, 3 owners apply for ag and get approved, and 1 owner does not apply, that owner will pay taxes at full market value, not at agricultural value. So that's very important that if you elect to have separate taxation on a divided interest of a property and you want to be eligible for agricultural appraisal, fill out an application. Page 1, section 2. If someone's filling out the application for you, we need this information here. Someone's saying that they're doing it for you, we need that information. Page 1, section 3 is at the bottom of the page there. That says the number of acres you wish to apply for. So you may have a 200-acre tract and you want to have ag on 100 acres and not the other 100 acres. You need to put that information there. The legal description there. If you don't know the legal description, you can look your account up on our website, or you can write on there the account number. This is also a place if you're leasing the property from someone, you can put that information in this spot, because it's a large area, and you can fill that information in there also. So you can put something there like we lease our property to XYZ, account number R1234, and lease is attached. So page 2, section 3, property description and information. So it's very important here. Number 1 says, has the ownership of the property changed since January 1 of the last year, or since the last application was submitted? So if you purchase a property that has agricultural appraisal and you're filling out an application so that you can qualify, you cannot check no. You have to check, yes, the property has changed. Because question number 2, last year, was the property allowed 1D1? So you weren't the owner of that property, so you did not qualify it. So each owner has to qualify the property. So if you check that box that nothing has changed, the application will be disapproved, sent back to the property owner, and you have 30 days to get the correct information. Number 3, is the property located in city limits? Because of statute, properties located in city limits are not eligible for ag unless they meet a certain criteria, and that would have to go through on each individual application. But most properties, new property applications, new ag applications for property in cities or towns, there's a good chance that they will not qualify because of that statute. In section 4, this is another very important section, is what you plan to use the property for and what the property was used for previously. So you must fill out what you're applying for the property. This year you're applying for row crop. You got to fill out that top line that says current, row crop, and how many acres you plan on using. You can put the year next to that current. So if you're filling it out for 2021, next to current, you can put 2021 there. We assume that it's for the current year. When you fill out an application and send it in, if it's not populated, we're going to assume it's for the current year. And then you go back for 5 out of the last 7 years and explain how the property has been used. If say for instance, a person buys a piece of property, it's been in agricultural use for many, many years, we're not going to look for qualifications. If the property has previously been qualified here in the county, and we can verify that qualification, that it has had agricultural appraisal, and we can look at the aerial photography and it has been in use, then filling out this information is enough. Now, if we pull up aerial photography and we see that the property has not been in use, but it's been filled out that it has been in use, we're going to ask for some more information, some more documentation proving that the property was in use in order to qualify. So page 2, section 4, lists the livestock. So if you're applying for improved pasture or native pasture and you're going to be running livestock, put the amount of livestock or the type of livestock there and the number of acres that are going to be used for that livestock. Section 2, or on page 2, section 4, letter B. So if you are doing livestock, you need to put the livestock again here, but you're also including the number of head. So this is where we get into the degree of intensity. So if you have several properties that you're applying for, and you have an individual application for each, what you need to look at here is what is the total number of head in your herd that you're going to be using on this property. So say you have 100 acres that you're applying for on this account, and you have 400 acres, and your total number of head of your herd is 100 head of cattle. You would put the 100 head here because they're going to be roaming on all 400 acres, and they may not be on this 100 acre tract at the time. So you include your number of head in the herd right there. Page 2, section 4, number 3. If you're applying for your row crop, put in whatever row crop you're going to be doing in the current year and the amount of acres that you're going to be growing. And on the ag applications, whenever you're filling out the ag application for your row crop, I know that the FSA office doesn't include the turn rows and such, but under statute, you can get agricultural appraisal on those turn rows. So the acreage of the property should be what qualifies for the agricultural appraisal. So if there's a problem with filling out this portion of the application, put your acreage of the property, the acreage you intend on growing, and we could go through the motions, go through the time frames, and get all the proper information that you would like to supply to us and that we need to qualify the property. Page 3, section 4, if the property is involved in any sort of government program to let the property lie fallow and not grow on it, we need to know what program that is, any paperwork involved with that program, and the acreage associated with that program. Page 3, section 4, if there's any part of the property that is not an agricultural use. So like I said previously, a home site, if you have a stable on the property that you're using for income, if you have a stable on the property that you're using for income, that's not eligible for agricultural appraisal. So therefore you have to render that here saying, okay, we have this amount of property that's not eligible and we're writing this down. If this is not populated, we go out and inspect the property and we see parts of the property that is not an agricultural use, that's going to either be a denial or a disapproval, and the application will be sent back until we get the proper information. So it's important to fill out every section of the application. Page 3, section 5 is if you're qualifying, if you want to qualify your property for wildlife management use. So you would fill out this section of the application, go through the motions there. If you're not qualifying, if you do not want to transfer your property from 1D1 agricultural appraisal to wildlife, do not fill out this section of the application. You could simply write NA and carry on through the application. There's several questions about wildlife there, about qualifying the property for wildlife under page 3, section 5. Page 4, section 6 is if you are converting the 1D1 property to timber production, you would have to fill out this portion about that and supply your timber plan. So your plan for growing and harvesting and replanting of the property. Currently, Fort Bend County does not have any timber production in the county. Section 7, very, very important. Page 4, section 7. This is certification and signature. In the bold font there, it says if you make a false statement on this form, you could be found guilty of a Class A misdemeanor or state jail felony under Penal Code section 3710. So it's very important not to apply for agricultural appraisal just as a tax shelter. The property needs to be used for agricultural use, and therefore, because of that, the state considers that, farmers need help, ranchers need help, and therefore the state declares that if you fill out this application and you qualify, you get some tax relief if you're using your property for qualifying agricultural use. So when you're filling out this section, you put your name, that's whoever's filling out the application. So when we go back to the very first page, it asks if someone was filling out the application for the property owner, then they would put their name here, and it says to swear or affirm the following, go through the checklist there, and then you sign and date it there. Once it's signed and dated, submit it to the appraisal district. You can either submit it to the appraisal district online, or you can mail it to the appraisal district. My suggestion is either submit it online because you will get a return receipt, or come to the office and have someone give you a date stamped copy. That way you know for sure you had it here prior to the deadline for a timely application and prior to the deadline for a late application. So that is how to complete a 1D1 agricultural appraisal application. Our next presentation is frequently asked questions. Can everybody see that? So agricultural appraisals, frequently asked questions. Again, I want to express that these slideshows are not on the website, but documents about the frequently asked questions are on our website, fbcad.org, and also the guidelines for agricultural appraisal is on our website, and the applications for agricultural appraisal are on our website. And there's actually a Spanish version of the agricultural appraisal application. There is a spot on our website that the applications are directly taken off of the controller's website, so you have the most updated application that is out there. And I will show you that at the conclusion of this slideshow. So let's go to frequently asked questions. So how do I get an ag exemption? It's an agricultural appraisal. So you have to fill out an application. You have to use it to the degree of intensity. It has to be the primary use of the property, and it has to be in use for 5 of the previous 7 years in order to qualify, in order to be eligible. So next question, what is a qualified agricultural use? I went through that in the earlier slideshow. The agricultural appraisal guidelines is on our website, fbcad.org, under forms. A qualifying use can be included but not limited to row crop, irrigated crop, which is rice, pasture lands, orchards, beekeeping. Again, I didn't go through it on the application, but a little side note there, when you're applying for agricultural appraisal and you're applying for the applied for use, if you write grazing on there, the application will be sent back. We need the actual use of the property. Are you applying for, if you write corn on there? Well, we kind of know that's row crop. So you need to be specific of the actual use that you're applying for. So if you're applying for row crop or pasture land, use that information. And then on the next page where it says the actual use you're using it for, you can put on there the corn or the ostriches or cattle or whichever. Next question, what is the minimum acreage for agricultural appraisal? Well, each agricultural use has a different minimum acreage. So I do recommend going and reviewing the agricultural guidelines that are found at fbcad.org. But most things are growing or ranching is 20 acres, 20 to 40 acres upward. The only thing, as I stated before, beekeeping, the minimum is 5, maximum of 20, and that's regulated by the state. If you do have properties under the minimum acreage, you can supply a lease. We are going to verify the lease, so make sure it's clear, convincing, and that way that will improve your eligibility. Next question would be, how do I complete an agricultural appraisal application? There are illustrated instructions on our website, fbcad.org, and it says how to complete an ag application. What is the deadline to file an application? That's April 30th of the year that you wish to apply for. Again, if you apply for agricultural appraisal for 2020 this year right now, that application will be, a copy of that application will be sent back to you with a letter saying that that application is invalid because it was turned in after the deadline. So that goes into the next question. I missed the application deadline. What can I do? Are late applications accepted? Is there a penalty for late applications? Again, applications are due by April 30th. Applications received May 1st, all the way to the day before they approve the appraisal. The ARB approves the appraisal records, which is typically mid-July. This year was July 20th, so your application would have had to been here by the 18th in order to be eligible. And this is by statute. This is not negotiable. If it comes in after that date, we can't work it. Next question, I received an application in the mail. Do I need to complete this application? My answer is yes. If you wish to be eligible for agricultural appraisal and I send you an application, fill it out. If you don't want to be eligible for agricultural appraisal, don't fill it out. So say you bought a piece of property, you bought 5 acres out of a 150-acre tract, and you don't wish to have agricultural appraisal on it. You choose for that 5 acres to be your homestead. So I sent you an application. Chances are we send out courtesy applications to all new owners of previously qualified ag property, just as a courtesy, just in case you guys wish to have agricultural appraisal, because agricultural appraisal is not grandfathered. There's no such thing. A property owner must qualify that property for agricultural appraisal. And by not filling out an application, that may trigger a rollback, which I stated before is the taxes for the past 3 years plus a 5% penalty per year. And again, that's another thing that's not negotiable. That's by statute. That comes straight out of the tax code. Next question, can I get wildlife? Wildlife is a special valuation. That will be addressed in the next meeting that we come to. But in order to get wildlife, you must have qualified your property as 1D1 open space agricultural appraisal in order to convert it to wildlife management. So if you qualify for that and you want to change to wildlife management appraisal, you need to fill out an application saying that you're changing it to wildlife management, supply a management plan. We appreciate if the plan is written by a biologist, and that must accompany the application applying to convert the property from agricultural use to wildlife management. And when this is done, the valuation, the property continues to be valued. If it is approved for the wildlife management, it continues to be valued at the agricultural use it was before converting to wildlife management. So if you convert row crop into wildlife management, it will be valued as row crop as long as that property is in wildlife management. And just like any other values in the county, that value fluctuates from year to year depending on the market. Can I change my agricultural use? As I stated before, you can. It is required that you fill out a new application stating that you're changing that use. If you don't fill out the application saying you're changing the use and the appraisal district finds out, there is a possibility of penalty accompanying that change. So if we go out and we notice that it has changed, we're going to send you an application. And if you don't fill out that application, we're going to remove the ag and then start going forward. So it's a process just to keep our records in order. My boss, the chief appraiser, requires that our records be in order, and the state of Texas requires our records to be in order. So it's no hard feelings. We just have to get our paperwork in order. So if we send you an application and you wish to be eligible, please send it back fully executed. Let's see. I've completed my application. Have I completed my application correctly? Well, instead of calling the appraisal district, hey, what I need to do here, or coming up here, hey, I don't know if I filled this out. Look at it. See if you filled out every field. If you didn't fill out every field, kind of try to find out why. Look at the illustrated instructions that are on the website. Did I follow those instructions? It's very important that you fill out the application completely, because it could delay the process, and we may have to spend the money and send it back to you certified mail. So just look it over, make sure everything's there, make sure it's signed, make sure it has the applied for year, and make sure you have your proper address on it and any other pertinent information. So if it does not meet the minimum acreage of the account, also make sure that your lease is included. Can I submit an application online? Yes, you can. You fill out the application, save it to your computer. I will show you in a moment where you can upload that to fbcad.org. It says here, it's one of the tabs there on our website. It's under e-services. Yes, it's under e-services, and at the bottom of that e-services menu, it says residential inventory and land upload section. You click on that, follow the prompts, and submit your application. Can I use the property in another county to effectively meet the degree of intensity typical minimum acreage of Fort Bend County? No, unless the property is split between the two counties. So if you have property between Brazoria County or Austin County or Wharton County, which probably not, because the river divides us, but you can use that acreage if it's divided by the county line. And we can verify that with the other county. What is a rollback and what initiates the process? We're running low on time here, so I'm going to go pretty quick. A rollback is when you take the property out of agricultural production. As I stated before, rollback is not negotiable. It's something that's mandated by the state. The values are not negotiable. It's what is historically on the appraisal roll. So if a property changes from agricultural use to a non-agricultural use, in which lack of use is considered a change of use, or starting a business on it, putting a warehouse on it, that all qualifies you for a rollback tax. And again, that's 3 years back taxes with 5% interest per year that the tax were not paid. Let's see, I'm building a house on previous ag land. Will I have to pay a rollback? The quick answer for that is every property that's ever had agricultural appraisal is eligible for a rollback. The only exception there is if the property qualifies as your residence homestead, in which you will have your residence homestead exemption. So if the property is in progress of being your residence homestead, we take that into consideration. We're going to have that property in a file. We're going to look at it next year, make sure that it's qualified for the residence homestead. If not, then the rollback will be initiated. And also in that case, if you occupy that house as your residence homestead for 2 years, and then you move out, that property is eligible for the rollback because it was not used for your residence homestead for 3 years. Again, this is not something that is made up. This is out of the Property Tax Code 2355. So how much will I pay in rollback taxes? And can I get that in writing? Yes, you can submit a written request to the appraisal district, and we will put together an estimate of rollback taxes on the property in question. Give us a few days. This is not something that we can do instantly. It takes a little time to get the information together. If you'd like us, we can email you. We can mail it to you, or you can just come and pick it up in a PDF form. And last question, how do I apply for a tax ID number for sales tax? You don't do it here. Many people think that we do the tax ID number, or if you have a tax ID number, that automatically qualifies you for agricultural appraisal for your land. That does not. But the tax ID number must be obtained through the controller's office, and you can go to the controllertexas.gov taxes, ag, timber, follow the prompts to that, and apply for the tax ID number there, but that's not at this office. And again, I want to note that if a person is submitting false documentation in an attempt to acquire special appraisal for taxation, could be subject to a penalty in accordance with the Texas Property Tax Code and or criminal action from Texas Penal Code 3710.
Okay.
So if we have a moment in time, I'd like to show the website if I could.
Yeah, Ben, I'm sorry. I thought we were no problem. Keep going, my man. I apologize.
I apologize. I didn't realize this was going to take every bit of the hour.
No. It's good information. And while I'm in, folks, don't be bashful. If you have questions, by all means, type it in. And I believe the note came across a while ago that Anna put it down in the chat box. And if you've got some questions of sensitive nature, just, really that you would rather just discuss with them, she has put her contact information in there as well, so that you can contact her as well. So go ahead, Ben. I'll back out.
All right. Does everybody see the appraisal district website?
We do.
Okay, and there's the advertisement for this meeting today. So as I stated before, we have a form section up here. Click on the FBCAD forms, scroll down to the bottom of the forms, and lo and behold, there's all the agricultural appraisal forms, the FAQs that I just went through, the guidelines that I went through at the beginning of the presentation. This link here, the guidelines for qualification for wildlife management, is a link to the controller's website to that document there that will help you along to see how to do your wildlife, how to complete an ag application. This is the document I was speaking of about what I was following along, showing you guys how to fill out the application. There's a copy of the 1D agricultural appraisal application. And as I stated before, most everyone in the county doesn't fill this out. There is occasion where one or two people will fill it out and come to find out they really don't qualify. So we have to go through the process of that, and they end up filing a 1D1. So it's my recommendation. You can fill out whatever application you want to fill out, but it's my recommendation that property owners fill out the 1D1 open space agricultural appraisal application, comptroller form 50-129. And here also is the application in Spanish. So that is a 1D1 application. Looks a little bit different than the current 1D1 application, but as of yesterday, the controller hasn't updated that to the new format. So if that's the format that it's turned in on, that's absolutely fine. That's controller's form there. So we will gladly accept that. So if we go back to, we spoke about the mailing address form, so change forms. So if you go on the website and you notice your property, you look up your property and you have it's got the wrong mailing address and you'd like to update that, you can fill out this request for a change of address, fill that form out, send it into the appraisal district, 2801 BF Terry, or you can come in, drop it off, get a date stamp copy, which is always my recommendation. It's a big office. Although it doesn't happen very often, but there are times where paperwork will get lost. So I do recommend coming in and getting a date stamp copy of that. So on our home screen there, don't tell me I lost it. There we go. So our home screen there, you see under facts, FAQ, frequently asked questions, agricultural appraisal. It's going to give you the documents that I just spoke about. These are all links to those documents. The special valuation document is a document put out by the controller's office. It's very informative. It's a sort of a cliff notes of agricultural appraisal. gives you some statistics, a very good document if you want to take a look at that. Again, this is another place where the FAQ is, the guidelines are, the wildlife management, all of that. Again, that's another location. On the right-hand side of the screen, there's another location that you can click on for agricultural appraisal, brings you straight to this screen. So there's just numerous places under forms. There is one more place that you can look for agricultural appraisal forms, and that's go under the Texas Controller Forms. Pull that screen up, and that pulls up various forms the controller's office has. Our agricultural, the controller's agricultural guidelines, the airport properties, parks properties, various publications by the controller's office. So there are plenty of places you can look to find all the information. And if you're wanting to upload your agricultural appraisal application, you do so here in the e-services. Scroll down to residential inventory land upload, and it will prompt you to go through, fill out the information that you fill out, upload the document. It goes to one of our appraisers. They receive that application and put it into our records. And when you upload this information, you will get a confirmation email. So therefore, that's just like having a date stamp copy. So again, it's my recommendation that you, if you want to submit an ag application, bring it up to the office, have the ladies up front give you a date stamp copy, submit the form there. It doesn't have to be an agricultural appraiser. It doesn't have to be an appraiser accept your form. You can just drop it off with the ladies up front and ask for a date stamp copy. You can mail it in, or you can put it in through the e-services. But I believe there is not much that could be asked that was not answered in this presentation. So I believe that concludes my presentation, and I will throw it back to Philip.
Okay, Ben, we really do appreciate it, and I wanted to thank you also for answering a few questions on the sidelines. That kept things running smooth. And if you have any other questions, by all means, give Ben and Anna a call at the Central Appraisal District, and they will be more than happy to help you. And I've had to call Ben a couple of times on even some property questions that I had, and they are more than happy to help you. They're good, honest folks. I've always had the utmost regards for them, and sometimes folks go in there, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But they're really good about helping you and showing you where you need to do, what you need to do, and following the rules and just making sure everything's straight and up front. So does anyone have, if you have any more questions, let me see. I can, I believe, I thought maybe I could unmute. If anyone had any audible questions they wanted to try, you might, if you have any questions you want to try to unmute real quick, you can do that. I don't know if our system will allow that to do that, but if you don't, that's fine. Does anyone have any questions? We'll just open it up real quick. Okay, Ben, you did a miraculous job.
I don't know if I'd call it miraculous, but not done.
Well, we thank you again, and everybody, thanks again for tuning in. And November 5th is the second part of this series as well. And Clint Foss, Texas Parks and Wildlife biologist for Fort Bend County and in Wharton County, he serves both counties. He'll be with us on November 5th, about the same time of the day. And so if you have some questions or thoughts about a wildlife appraisal, you can certainly get it at that time as well. One more thing, and I'll let you go. In a survey here just momentarily in your email. Boy, we sure would appreciate it if you would be sure and fill that out, send that. It's about 10 or 11 questions, really quick. Just take you a minute to do it, but it really helps us in future programming. So we do appreciate your time. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you down the road. Thank you, Ben.
Outstanding. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
Okay.